Afternoon, West in the world. Welcome to your review video for Thursday, October the 2nd, following this morning's discussion of the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment. We're just 1 week out from our first test, so let me see if I can put together some key pieces and maybe help you see a little bit of how they connect to other things that we have been talking about. So, we started with the scientific revolution, which we said at the beginning of the class, although we don't think of it often, has had an immense formative influence on Western patterns of thought. We tried to identify the ways in which our assumptions, our acceptance of scientific conclusions has shaped our basic worldview. And all I was trying to highlight in that conversation about moving shadows and dropping pens is that our expectations are shaped in some ways based on things we can't really explain or see or hold on to, and that sometimes they're actually just downright contradictory to the ways in which we experience the world. Right? None of us experience, in the physical sense, the movement of the Earth around the sun. So we need to be cautious when dealing with people from the past or people of other cultures who are not immersed in this, in thinking that their patterns of thinking are irrational or ignorant. So, we then saw that it is this very question of astronomy and the position of the sun relative to the Earth that is the launching point for many of these conversations, beginning in the 16th and continuing through the 18th century. The issue, of course, the debate centered around a geocentric model of the universe based on the work of Aristotle and Ptolemy from the sort of pre-Christian antiquity, and the ways in which they understood a world that had been organized by elements in a rigid hierarchy from the most physical earthly materials to the highest sort of spiritual materials in the quintessence, those concentric circles that surround us. That, of course, had then been translated by the church and given these theological meanings. The idea of a ring, you may recall, as some sort of perfect circle, a reflection of God's character seen in the created order. Well, the problem with all of that, of course, is that it's wrong and that the universe is actually heliocentric and that the sun lies at the center. And as people like Copernicus and Kepler and Galileo and ultimately Sir Isaac Newton showed us, it's not all that orderly, at least not in the way that we might naturally expect. Orbits are not circular, but elliptical. Objects do not travel at a constant rate of speed, but accelerate and slow down as they move closer or further from the sun. So the scientific revolution, by way of these debates about the shape of the universe, leads then into a whole new era of thinking and attempts to pattern thought and social life after the scientific method, and the search for universal laws, like the law of gravity, that apply to all people in all times. And that, of course, is where the Enlightenment enters into the picture, is in challenging people to exercise their freedom, their abilities to exercise their rational faculties, and to apply it to the patterns of daily life. We're going to be talking a lot more in the days ahead about how some of these people, or who some of the key figures are and how they play into this. But all that you really need to worry about for now is the example of someone like a Montesquieu, who conducts this sort of survey of the political systems of Europe and says, you know what? There are better ways of doing this, and what this entails is this separation of powers. Montesquieu's study is a great example of someone who is trying to tangibly change the world around him, the great goal of the philosophes, as we call them, these sort of self-designated, self-appointed representatives of Enlightenment thinking. Their influence, of course, is leading us towards the era of the Atlantic revolutions, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Haitian Revolution, etc. In the meantime, of course, this whole movement of the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment is widening this gap, opening up a chasm in some ways between these patterns of thought and that of the church. And so the assault on Christendom that began with the Reformation is in some ways still furthered by what we saw today. Exemplified, of course, in the trial of Galileo before the Inquisition. But all of these factors are sort of contributing more generally to that dramatic shift in the overall influence of the church as an institution in Western society. How that all will continue to play out will be subjects for another day. Thanks, everybody. Good luck with your test reviews, and I will see you in class on Tuesday morning.